Welcome, viewers. This is Wadidja. As in, what did you say? What did you do? What did you think? And bringing you another episode in the ability card series I've sort of started here. Talking about DPS loadouts and DPS hybrid builds as well. I don't know. Like I said, I want to try to have a few things highlighted as far as your build types, and hopefully the information doesn't get lost in the mix of the previous videos that I've done. The first two, to me, in my opinion, were most comprehensive. I wanted to do them all in one video, but there was an error and disconnect from the game system here, from the server, the Red Dead online servers. But anyway, like I said, with this here, we're going to be dealing with DPS focused loadouts involving Deadeye and the passives associated. Um, again, disclaimer, none of these are necessary. As you can see, there's a remove button where you can take all these things out if Deadeye things aren't your preference. You can just use the passives as well if you choose to. Um, there are a host of different combinations that you can go with depending on your game style, tactics, and preferences, as well as aspects of role playing is concerned. Um, I'm going to include the hybrid aspects because, there are other ability cards which can affect, your DPS, your damage per second, based on their attributes. Um, in which case, because you're adding in defensive abilities and you're adding in recovery abilities, you could look at it as a hybrid build versus just a, singular DPS or combat build. Um, first off here, I guess the good place to start is with the actual main Deadeye card. Again, you can remove it or keep it in. Um, Also, too, just to backtrack on the disclaimer, anything can typically be, you know, overpowered with the right type of damage. So if you're using your, one second here, your light arrows or your, explosive rounds or your incendiary rounds, those things will, within one, maybe two shots, depending on your level, your accuracy per se, distance, yada yada yada, whether they're moving, depending on their ability cards, you're going to take them out. You're going to obliterate whatever they have going on. And if you decide to go with, this sort of DPS or combat specific loadout, regardless of what type of ammunition you're using, you're more than likely going to take them out within 3, 4 shots, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. All depends on your tactics, range, what you're using at the time, et cetera, et cetera. And bear in mind too, the go-to is as a hatchet to the forehead. That'll definitely wipe out anything you're trying to deal with if you can close the gap. But you've got a lot of people out there which can counter various different things. I'd say the most deadly aspect of any counter of any build could possibly be this slippery bastard. But again, that only works works against you if you're not used to using free aim, and of course it would work against you if you're using painted black. Um, but something like focus fire would not throw off the situation when you're utilizing this in either free roam, PvE, or even other PvP scenarios like your event series. Um, Focus Fire is a good card. I enjoyed leveling it. Um, the whole DPS setup of things hasn't really impacted me that much to focus on just yet. I'm hoping that my other avenues will pan out, but if they don't, I'm going to come back to this DPS setup here, and little by little I'll be leveling it up regardless, even further, just to have them leveled, but to level 3. But I have leveled all of them at least once and unlocked them all, so I don't know, I feel like a good degree of confidence in being able to talk about them. But in this loadout here, we're dealing with focus fire, winning streak, Landon's patience, and horseman. Um, you know, this whole DPS setup doesn't have very many fallacies or pitfalls. Um, outside of the fact of being on your horse for this one here, waiting between 15 seconds between shots with this one here, if you are using the same weapon. At the moment, if you switch weapons, you will your damage will increase, um, anyway. um, and so you don't necessarily have to switch between weapons, at the moment to do that. But I think that's a bug in relationship to that. Um, and in winning streak here, consecutive shots do more damage. So at level 1 it's a little bit more. As you level them up, they become more potent. As you can see here, level 2 does more damage, level 3 does much more damage. But again, I haven't found any issues with even having some degree of damage taken away from you, like for example, like with this one here, where you deal a little less damage with the benefits of it. If you're focusing on a varmint rifle situation, if and again, if you're going against individuals that are tanked in some kind of way or healing, uh, you know this DPS setup will work for you. The consecutive shot aspect, relies on your aim and not missing. You can pause in between shots. You just can't, miss consecutive shots. But focus fire is good whether you're in a team-based situation or running solo. Just keep in mind the fact that it doesn't stack if more than one person is running with it. Um, so if you're the only one, if you're solo or if you're with a team, just make sure that only one of these is active at that point in time. If you have communication with each other, you can coordinate them. But yeah, this is a very effective DPS or combat loadout that you could go with here. Now, again, there are other DPS setups you could go with. If you want to substitute your horseman, um, and you play on a very low health pool for whatever your reason, you could go with the necessity breeds. I never really found much benefit out of that one, or much use that I noticed. And then you've got the short game, a little bit more damage targets closer to you. Now, if you're running in the whole melee kind of scenario, melee build, the hatchet type, competitive sports or whatever, or combat events, this would work for you, very well. You just have to mind the point that you have to close that gap to that individual or individuals, and you have a limited supply in regard to throwing objects, as well as having to make sure you recover it or pick up another one if you once you put it in somebody or thrown it. Um, but this works very effectively. And of course you have the Hangman, which you could substitute for the horseman thing if you are a lasso type individual, which again, like the hatchet, like a lot of the explosive type rounds, will in volatile incendiary, volatile dynamite, the lasso will negate anything anybody has going on as well, and this here allows you to get damage per second with it. And of course that that goes up as you level it up, all the way to a lot of damage every second they're lassoed. And of course, if an individual doesn't break out and meet it, quickly, you have, good tip, pull out your knife as soon as the lasso hits to be able to get out of that. You want to use your hunting knife only and not any other type of melee weapon. But again, as far as like a straight combat, straight DPS setup, this would be a good way to go. Now, in my opinion, if you're not, if you don't, if you're good with free aim capabilities, when someone might decide to use Slippery Bastard, um, and realize that they'd have to have this fully leveled, and even that fully leveled, the rate at which your Deadeye drain is increased. Even with that, though I don't have the experience with it, my experience at level 1 with even trying to compensate for that drain with Unblinking Eye, it still drains very, very rapidly. So the thing is that you could still gain the advantage with Painted Black either before or after they run out. if they were to use Slippery Bastard, because painted black, it allows for not only just immediate accuracy because of Deadeye, but you can, it will paint a target, as many places as you have shots to deliver from whatever weapon you're using. So, if we go ahead and equip painted black, these other attributes become even stronger and more, and less, and you have fewer pitfalls because of the fact that you can paint the situation with, paint your target, and whether it's throwing a hatchet or arrow or whatever, it's like almost acting like a homing situation to its target. The only thing that'll throw that off is if they dodge. Well, no, not even if they dodge. If it's already been painted, they'll still get hit. But if they duck behind something, if something gets in the way of your projectile, then you'll have an issue like that. But again, it just really reinforces running streak, Landon's patience. And for a lot of situations where if you're not in a horse race, for example, you're not running around in free roam or don't have your horse, again, you'd probably want to start lending yourself to a hybrid build situation unless some of the other DPS setups suit you and your purpose. But going in a direction of the hybrid builds at this point, while utilizing, like I said, either painted black or focus fire, like I said, on this DPS combat side of things, you could substitute, out your horsemen, or one of the others, depending on your preference or your gameplay tactics. Landon's patience is another one you could substitute out. But, if you wanted to just go with, this sort of general formula here I'm sort of presenting, you can go ahead and, do a hybrid, combat recovery loadout setup with peak condition, in which case peak condition is going to work for you all the time to give you more damage if your bar is at least 75% full. Now that's more damage at level 3. Of course, as you level up, it's a little damage and then more damage type thing, and then a lot more. So it'll always do you good, and you will notice the difference as you use it. I've never felt like I've needed any one of these damage cards or any of the damage cards again to compensate for what, say, the Gift of Focus reduces as far as damage. Again, that can come into play if you decide to want to go with a further hybrid build beyond just peak condition. You could go, seeing I'm mentioning it, a tonic type situation where you're using items or other ability cards to restore Deadeye. I find it exceptionally useful because it gives you that extra buff over the situation. You can extend your Deadeye period of time, therefore increasing your damage per second with whichever ability you're utilizing, because you can continually restore your Deadeye with tonics, and make this very, very effective. And of course, if you want to focus on that damage per second aspect of things, peak condition could come into play. But if you wanted to, so like I said, I could put this in here, the Gift of Focus. And, if you wanted to maintain winning streak, you could. If you, like I said, if you wanted to go with this hybrid build of things, you can keep in winning streak, or you can go with a what is it here? Eye for an eye. Headshots restore a lot of Deadeye. So basically, what you're doing here with this is you're using a tonic and white bar loadout. So your white bar is what's underneath, or your gold bar once you ingest a tonic. 1 second. Again, bottom left above my mini map, you see the white bars around my cores. So you could go with an eye for an eye, utilizing the Gift of Focus. This will increase even further the amount of Deadeye you receive, as well as using tonics as a backup, as well as using this to maintain a full state of damage. This is an optional, I guess you could consider this a a recovery DPS loadout. You know, and again, you could use Deadeye, or you could go ahead and use, excuse me, not just Deadeye, Painted Black, or you could go ahead and use Focus Fire, you know, for this setup as well. Extremely effective. Your damage per second is off the chain. Just have to respect the limitations, but it'd be hard to see how, you know, you wouldn't win the fight if they didn't kill you first or blow you up. With pretty much whatever you're shooting with. Of course, you know, if you're using something like the Varmint rifle and you're going against a tank, yeah, it's going to require far more shots to deal that situation. But with a level peak condition, you know, you'll be doing a lot more damage consecutively, you know, regardless if you don't have the focus fire in or not. You know, just by sheer, you know, per second damage as it accrues. But you know, again, you know, if you know, for that damage per second, making sure, you know, consecutive shots land, I tend to prefer the use of Painted Black. You can just roast 2-3 targets before they know what's going on. You know, if you're really good with it. But yeah, so trying to see here. You know, again, on the hybrid side of things, you could substitute, you know, or leave, you know, peak condition in, go with aspects which will enhance your Deadeye drain, because it, you know, that can be quite fast, you know, essentially. Let's see, yeah. So right, so you know, you can go with, let's kind of rearrange this a little bit better here. So like I said, yeah, you can go with Unblinking Eye to help the Deadeye drain be more efficient against your white bar. Now this does not regard your tonic usage. You know, if you want to stay on the DPS side of things and the hybrid side of things, again, you can keep in your peak condition, or you can go with any one of the you know, combat abilities which might suit your play style, like I covered earlier. But in this scenario, we're going to, you know, demonstrate sort of more of a hybrid situation here. Again, you can go with Eye for an Eye, increasing, you know, your Deadeye, because this does, once you level it up, it give you quite a bit. Now if you want to go with a DPS Deadeye no bonus damage setup, because, you know, damage per second, the longer you're in, you know, your Deadeye, the longer you can maintain your Deadeye, the longer you can sustain certain aspects of damage, or repetitive aspects of damage, like with Painted Black. But you know, if you want to sustain this aspect of damage, you know, I would recommend going with Focus Fire, Unblinking Eye, Eye for an Eye, and instead of peak condition, use a Gift of Focus. And again, you know, you're going to utilize your tonics with this, as well as understand that your white bar around your Deadeye is going to be your safety net, you know, to your core, which you can also to reinforce with gold foods that you can make. I covered a lot of this in the previous videos as well. And you know, there are a lot of videos, other videos out there by other creators that highlight, you know, and show various different locations where you can farm the food stuffs and the herbs to do so, as well as the fact that you can buy your tonics if, you know, you want to dedicate your money that way. But it can be a quite costly affair, though. But again, items and abilities which restore Deadeye, so it would definitely marry well with Eye for an Eye, definitely extending the life of this. But you know, you want to definitely be doing your headshots rather than body shots when you are using this situation here. So you know, your point of aim is going to be a little bit more key to making this a success. You know, if you want to go with a DPS sort of a tank loadout situation where, you know, again, you're maintaining focus fire, or you're using painted black, you know, you can go ahead and take out, say, gift of focus here, and you could substitute in your never without one. Now, you know, mad controversy about this, and potentially some kind of a bug with it. Maybe it's their way of keeping it fair and balanced, but it's very difficult if to spawn in, if at all, with your hat when you're in a PvP match of some sort. Now, in the open world, you can pick up your hat and you can go back to your horse and get your hat, from what I've noticed and have been experienced, and you can use strategy and tactic to maintain that. And you know, because you're not using any type of a tank setup, or you know, damage resistance setup with your Deadeye, this is kind of a you know, a one-off, so to speak. You know, it's like it'll save you in a situation where you would have already been dead, possibly giving you that extra moment to do something back if they're not consecutively just roasting you or they'll blow you up. And again, a lot of folks don't even like the card just because it kind of seems unnatural to be able to have a hat that blocks a headshot for this time period or whatever. You know, I don't know. To me, if you wanted to explain the point, it could be like, you know, some kind of metal lace on the inside of the brim of the hat or something like that, similar to what you get when the armor you have when you fight against Teddy Graham. I mean, if you wanted to be creative with the reasoning, but either who, you know, you can substitute out never without one with any one of these other tanking type abilities, which might feel like you may suit you. Just have to bear in mind the limitations under which they are, like this one here, a single purpose, you know, less damage from bullets only, and it works for you if you're unarmed and using a melee weapon. But you know, you can toggle your weapon on, you know, and equip your weapon on and off, you know, when you need to use it versus having it active. Just keep in mind there is a, you know, you got a degree of time in between having your weapon ready at that point. You know, this here again, from bullets and only when you're sprinting. And you know, this I would say would be the most effective overall, as long as you are utilizing cover effectively. And you know, in a military tactic, so to speak, common sense, you know, you're using cover and using some type of SZ formation pattern, running tactic. You know, you're not making, you know, running straight at an enemy, giving him an easy target, and utilizing cover along the way to close the gap, or you know, or to negotiate your environment and to keep enemies at bay if that's your wish, block off various different areas of attack if you wish with fire bottles. Whatever you're doing, you can use this very well if you're utilizing cover. And you know, you just want to make sure you're in cover too, because sometimes it may seem like you're in cover when you're not in cover. But you'll kind of know that. Let's see, one second here. As far as dealing with the cover situation, let me show you what I'm talking about here, because you know, that could get you killed, you know what I'm saying, if you don't have it right. I'm trying to find not just a tree but something kind of broad. Will he take cover? Yeah. So at the moment he's in cover, and you can know that because when you get into cover and you pull back with your control stick or your mouse or whatever, you'll have to sort of move out of it versus just sit in front of it. You know, as well as the fact that when you go into your satchel, various different things may degrade when you're in cover. So you know, it's, you know, but yeah, just sitting in front of the cover like this, that's not being in cover, you know. So just take care with that aspect and you should be good. But yeah, I think that's about it on the DPS hybrid side of things, and you know, even DPS hybrid tonic aspect of things, if you want to regard it that way. Let's see here, just want to double check. Yeah, that's about the best that I can recommend from my gaming experience with these and leveling them up, as far as, you know, your various different options to what you could have, and you know, the limitations that you're under, and realize that if you're using tonics and gold foods, that can be very expensive. You know, so um, take care with that. You know, but yeah, again, this is another the other setup that you could go with here. Um, I don't know. I like it. I think I like it better if we do it like this. Color coordinate. But yeah, put eye for an eye here, and then put, you know, your unblinking eye here. So, you know, have it at your will. You know, more than likely, like I said, if my current setup of things doesn't go well for me, I'll probably go with some type of setup in regard to probably using painted black. More than likely, you know, but again, if I feel like at any moment that that's not working for me, Focus Fire is going to be my next card. I as far as the Deadeye abilities, that I rank up to rank 3. And as far as my passives are concerned, the next one I'm going to rank up is Hunker Down, because that's very effective. But like if I had to make an immediate switch now from what I'm using, more than likely I'd probably go with something like this, with, you know, utilizing a gift of focus, you know, maximizing a tonic situation, and uh, you know, because of the way I play, and because I don't really jump into the competitive series things, you know, I'd probably run with Never Without One, just to keep things up on par. Because like I said, I don't typically feel like this deal little this damage thing affects my gameplay or how quickly I can kill an enemy, because of the way I'm consecutively hitting him and bombarding them with either explosives or what have you. But you know, if by some chance I felt like it was I wasn't getting my point across well, and being able to win the fight, I'd probably go with something like Peak Condition, to increase the damage, rather than any of these other deep combat abilities, because they have certain conditions which, you know, in my opinion, limit the strategies and tactics that I can employ. And you know, I kind of like, you know, your all around Navy SEAL, just special combat, just, you know, go anywhere, deploy anywhere, do anything type builds, more so than game specific type builds, or game mode specific type builds. But you know, definitely they do have their advantage, of course, without a doubt. You know, like you know, I'm going to make another video about the defensive abilities, and another one about recovery abilities as well. So, you know, as far as healer and tank setups are concerned, you know, specifying on those things, so that, you know, again, the information doesn't get too lost in the shuffle. But you know, I hope this has been informative. Again, this is, you know, just me sharing and preserving my experience with it all. And definitely enjoy, and thank you for viewing.